Can you actually accelerate and speed up your time frame to getting that passive freedom and ultimately that time freedom that you want? That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Hello, my fellow Ripplers. This is Chris Miles, your cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor. This show is for you. You've worked so hard for that money, and you're now ready to start making that money work harder for you today. You want to become work optional, where you work because you want to, not because you have to. Why? Because you have enough passive income coming in to cover all your needs and then some. But it's not just to help you live a fat, rich life, right? Although that's a nice perk too. But it's about allowing you to have more resources to bless the lives of others, because that is what it means to create a ripple effect. Because as you're blessed financially, you can now bless more lives. And that's exactly what I'm here to do with you guys today. I so appreciate you tuning in. You've been binging on these episodes and sharing. And by the way, we're now past 950 episodes. By the end of this year, we're going to be surpassing the 1,000 episode mark. I don't know what we're doing, but I know we're going to celebrate. Hey, if you haven't done so already, please leave us a review on Spotify or iTunes, wherever you listen to these podcasts. Love to have a little quick shout out. If you love our show, give us a 5-star rating. If not, just move on. Just do something else. So anyways, thank you so much for doing that. So today's episode, I already talked about how do we speed up our results? How do we get to our goals faster? And it doesn't even have to require more money. That's what I want to talk about today, because I've brought on Dr. Nona Djavid, right? Now, she's a former chiropractor, 7-figure chiropractor, by the way, which is pretty impressive in and of itself. But she's also now turned more into mindset mentor, speaker. She's the author of the Elevate Your Life, which I think is so cool. Neuroscience background, as well as deep spiritual practice. So taking that Western and Eastern cultures and blending it together and bringing it to what we have today. Because I'll tell you, in my own life, it's never been just the strategy. In fact, I think the strategy is the easy part. It's been the mindset and the energy, and how do you align with it so that you get those results faster. That is the key that many of you are missing right now, and that's exactly why we have Dr. Djavid on with us today. So, Nona, welcome to our show.
Hi, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so you got to give us some bit more background on this. I mean, you've got a pretty extensive background, obviously. So tell us. I mean, you went from chiropractor to mentor and coach. Tell us what your story is.
Yeah, I'll make a really short story and make a long story short and give you the summary of it. But I love that the topic of today's conversation is collapsing time, because that has been the thing in the theme in this entire story. So when I first graduated, I went to Berkeley. I studied neuroscience. Then I went to chiropractic school, became a chiropractor, became an entrepreneur, probably only worked a job, maybe about 6 months to 9 months. And then after that, just kind of went out on my own and I hit the ground running. So here I am in my early 20s doing all the things that all the coaches and the mentors and the consultants and the business people are telling me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was massively successful for a 20-some-year-old. In my early 20s, I was near 7 figures.
Wow.
And now you mentioned strategy, right? I
Mhm.
was the strategy king or queen. I was doing all the things that you would do to grow a business and multiply. And I had about 13 employees working for me, an associate running the clinic, and all of those things. And I was working either 40 hours a week or more, or if I was working less many hours and had my team running the business, I was constantly stressing and thinking and worrying and strategizing. Like my entire life had become my business, and I hit a point where I completely burnt out in the process. And that was, retrospectively, was one of the best things that has ever happened to me in my life, as it seems to be trauma or, these kinds of moments, they become the turning point. And
Mhm.
as I went through that, I remember being completely burnt out, feeling broken, and some personal stuff too. Like my marriage wasn't working. I was just extremely tired. I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. And while the numbers looked good, like you said, a fat bank account and whatever else that I wanted in my early 20s, I could have had, I was just completely burnt out, done, alone, frustrated and off purpose. And I remember having a moment and a vision or an idea that came to me that completely scared me.
Hmm.
And it was an unreasonable idea in that moment. The idea was, what if I start to move into or create or build or transition my existing brick and mortar into a part-time seven-figure practice? Like, what if I could cut my hours in half and maybe generate, at the time I was near seven figures, maybe I can break through the seven figures working less.
Hmm.
And that was the first seed that was planted. There were other things that I wanted to sort of bring about an experience in my life. I wanted to experience love. I wanted to experience travel. I wanted to build a family that I can world school, and I wanted to live bicontinentally. But the biggest idea there that allowed me to tap into all of this other lifestyle stuff was this idea of collapsing time and transitioning into building part-time seven-figure businesses. And so my first experiment here was the brick and mortar of the chiropractic practice that I had. I had a vision. Within a year, it took me about a year to transition my full-time practice into part-time seven figures. In that year, I also opened up three other businesses that were three other locations. One business, three other locations was a weight loss brick and mortar business. Took it virtually. So lots of different things started to develop. So now we're at multiple, this is a few years in, multiple seven figures, working part-time, mainly passive. And I can tell you sitting here now, there's some other developments too, is that what got me out of working full-time and burning myself out and into generating this level of passive or easy, or I call sexy money,
Hmm.
um, was not the strategy. I mean, strategy is important. You have to have systems in your business, and I wear the business consulting hat all the time. Is you have to have those systems in place that give you freedom. You have to have the automations, the delegations, all the things that give you a level of freedom. But what made the pivot was really in the energetics or the mindset of things. Now, fast forward, I'll just wrap up the story, but fast forward, a few years ago. So this has become apparently my soul's purpose, to figure out how to collapse time and generate more profitability in a shorter period of time and scale with ease instead of, with the struggle of scaling a business. Just a few years ago, I had this idea of 1 week a month lifestyle. This just, you could say it was channeled in. I don't know. I just came up with this idea. And as this idea came about, I thought to myself, this is crazy. I had a mini panic attack in the moment. Like, how are you going to do this? And I had to sit with it. And I made a recognition that the same things that had held me back and created the burnout, now those things, those blockages in my belief system, or those old patterns, were actually with this idea of, what if you only worked 1 week a month and had 3 weeks of freedom? Now there's all these old patterns that are popping up. The old fears and doubts are popping. Like, what are you going to do for the other 3 weeks? What are you going to not be productive? And are you lazy? And like, you're not worthy if you are not constantly working, all the things that we typically have as entrepreneurs. And there was a lot of that I had to overcome. And fast forward, now I teach entrepreneurs how to scale easy. And, we're talking about over a decade of a time process, but
Hmm.
teaching entrepreneurs how to tap into more in a less period of time, collapsing time, generating more in their existing lifestyles.
I love it. Man, there's a lot of I can want to unpack here, but I want to go back because I want to kind of see like the evolution here, right?
Hmm.
And the fact that you say, I mean, one, I mean, I've worked with hundreds of chiropractors. I know that most of them barely can pay their own bills, right? Like it's not like it's not like dentistry where usually they come out of school, they get into practice, they might work on their own. But I've noticed it's different because chiropractics, in chiropractic, industry, right? Like it's very common to want to be your own boss, but then they really don't know how to run a business. So they become very self-employed, you know? I mean, is it just because you were so coachable? What was it that got you over into that strategy mode and get it to work so quickly, so fast?
I wish I could tell you it was because of a positive attribute. I wish I could tell you I was so coachable and I think partly, yes, I could lean in and say I was willing to do whatever it took to create success,
Mm,
right? So like that is an attribute. That's a trait that I had and I have. It's evolved, but it was like, tell me what to do. I will do it. And I am willing to do what it takes to get to the next level for myself at the time. And the other thing I can tell you that led to burnout, even
mhm.
though I had that positive attribute that got me to seven figures as a young chiropractor, the other part of it was I was scared. I was scared of not making it. I was scared of not
Interesting.
being worthy of the success. I was scared of,
If you've been following this podcast, you're probably looking for great ways to create passive income right now, right? Well, we got you covered here with Central Lending. Central Lending specializes in alternative investments that actually are designed to create steady returns and long-term financial security for you and your family. Now, they prioritize transparency. They love, building those strong relationships, giving you that confidence and peace of mind, knowing that you have your money working harder for you, so you don't have to work so hard for that money. You want to learn more how to do that? Go to centrallending.com and check out what they've got today to create your passive income and wealth creation right now.
not feeling validated in the world, if you would, because if I give you a little background, I moved to the United States, first generation, I guess I would be the second generation immigrant. My parents moved, and I was 16 years old at the time. So we went from being middle class in Iran, middle, maybe higher
Mhm.
class in Iran. My parents gathered all of their savings, all the money that they had, they brought it to the United States. Literally, we arrive at LAX and we hit poverty line because of the currency exchange. So
Yeah.
here we are, my sister, myself, and my parents were living in a tiny little place, and all the standards that we used to keep, like we were robbed of it just circumstantially.
Mhm.
And so I was afraid of losing and putting myself back in a situation of not having enough. So I studied really hard to sort of get into Berkeley, get a
Mhm.
scholarship, and like become a doctor. So a lot of what I accomplished, unfortunately, but also fortunately, came from a place of being scared of not making it and
Yeah.
not creating that dent in the universe or for myself, not proving myself. But I did definitely have grit as well.
Yeah. I can resonate with that a lot. I know my wife had a similar story where she immigrated from Venezuela. Her family went from upper middle class to broke coming to the US. And then of course she had that pressure like, hey, you're like one of the, you're like the dreamers, right? Like you got to be the one that makes it, you got to be the one that does it. And then it drove her in business and it got her to the point where it drove her into really like just destroying her health, and well-being that way, and it sounds like you kind of had your own journey within that as well.
Yeah, very similar.
So explain that a little bit because you said you really hit burnout pretty hard. I mean, what was that point where you said, okay, something's got to change now? Like what was it for you? Like that it may not have been one moment, but it might have been multiple moments. What was it for you though?
Yeah, it was a very specific, I mean, it was series of moments, but there's one specific moment that I remember. This is actually after my first child was born, and he's now 10. So this is about that many years ago. And I remember I put him down for a nap. He was an infant. I took a call with my employees, and technically things are taken care of in the office. We go over some numbers, and
Mhm.
that meeting was over with. And then I just walked myself into the closet, shut the door, shut the lights, and I sat there against the wall, held onto my knees, and I started sobbing.
Mm,
While it was in that moment that it felt like everything sort of crashed and I was feeling the exhaustion and the overwhelm and I felt trapped in the life that I had built that traditionally was supposed to look successful.
right.
And so it was in that moment where I made a lot of changes and shifts in the process. But two things I want to make clear every time I tell this story. One is that this is none of any kind of quantum leap you make in life or transformation you make is not overnight.
Mhm.
It's always a process because I don't want to give falsehood to the story. So this is a long process that happens, but it's the continuation after you have your moment of choosing a different vision for your life, moment after moment after moment. For me, it was freedom. It was creating financial, time, energy freedom for myself and my family.
Right. And so for you, what were some of the first steps you took to doing that? One thing I noticed in your story is that questions were really important, like the what if, the possibility, right? Like, what if it could be this? Like, what's possible? I
Mhm.
noticed that was in your language. I don't know if that was some of the first steps or if that came later, but what were some of your first steps you took to kind of get away from this success trap that you were caught in?
Mhm. I think the very and you're right. One is being open to the possibility, like what is possible for me, and the possibility that I can make the X, Y, and Z happen in a shorter period of time, going back to collapsing time, right?
Hmm.
But I think the very practical step that I took was I wrote out a vision for a completely different life that I had at the moment. So I wrote out the kind of business that I wanted to have, how I wanted it to be super part-time, and how I wanted it to be multi-seven figures, and the freedom to travel and freedom to this and that and the other. And I made a commitment to that vision. So on my bad days, I would wake up and I would say yes to the vision. On my good days, I would say yes to the vision. While I was making coffee, I would say yes to the vision. While clients would drop, I would say yes to the vision. So just kind of made a commitment to the vision day in and day out. And I think that's been a continuous journey even to this day as I quantum leap in my life and my business, having a next level that I continually say yes to its possibility is important.
So important. Yeah. And so what would you say are some good next steps for somebody listening to this right now? Because I know, and this is something that it seems like you had to address too. There are a lot of people that are successful not because they're driven by faith, but by fear,
Mm.
right? And I know you probably had to make that transition at some point to stop running away from something and start running towards that vision. How did you make that transition, that leap to say, how do I break away from that scarcity, fear driven, aspect of success to a more abundance driven aspect?
Yeah, I know we don't have time to go through this, but I have a four-step process that walks people through this entire process of how do you go from fear, or I call struggle money,
Mhm.
into, say, for example, sexy money or an unreasonable life, relationship, circumstance that you are looking to experience. And I'll just share really quick what they are.
Yeah.
But the very first step in the process is having a vision. So when
Mhm.
you have a vision and it's at the forefront of your mind every single day, and you're choosing to say yes to the vision, regardless of your circumstances, then okay, I'm already at the frequency of this future vision that I want to experience. I'm no longer, spending so much time and energy in what's not working in my current reality. So in some way you become present with what you have, and then you go, this is what I want to experience in the future. The second step in the process is expanding the identity. So the identity of me and before I walked into that closet was I have to work to make money. Like that was a
Mhm.
belief system that I had. You mentioned this in the introduction to this podcast. I thought I had to make money. I had to work hard to make money. That was a belief
Mhm.
system. Well, with that belief system, guess what my life would have looked like? I would have to work hard to make money.
Yeah.
I would there was some level of struggle that was attached to that. And so, in the new identity, in the step two of this process, expanding the identity is evaluating how you were showing up or how you are showing up right now, and figuring out the next version of you that has that next level of financial time freedom. How would she or he show up in that space? So, what are
Mm.
the belief systems he would have? What are the thoughts that he would have? What are the habits and the rituals? I mean, it probably would look into more investments and less of, the day-to-day minute silly things that kind of drain us, right?
Mhm.
So that's the second step in the process. The third step is embodying that. And of course, the fourth step is taking unreasonable action from a place of where you are headed, not from where you are.
I love it. Now, I know you mentioned to me before we went on the air that on Instagram, on your account, you actually have a free gift. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I have a 90-minute training that breaks down the four steps of a quantum leap that I just briefly mentioned. So
Yeah.
if this conversation is resonating with anyone, they just connect with me on Instagram and send me a DM and say, "Hey, I heard you on with Chris on this conversation." I will be happy to send that training over, and it's absolutely free.
Yeah. So just slide into Nona's DMs there, there you go.
That's right.
So, well, that's great. Well, two more questions here. The last one is, where do you feel like you're going now? Like, what do you feel like your life is like today? Like, how does it contrast with what you had dealt with?
Whew. Now I've got, I'm in a new relationship. I got divorced. I have
Mhm.
two kids. I'm in a new relationship, engaged to be married. I live between Southern California and Italy, and all of my businesses generating multi-seven figures and doing it 1 week a month. And of course, I have masterminds and retreats and things like that for entrepreneurs where I teach them how to collapse time and increase their profitability.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. And who do you typically serve? Is it chiropractic? Is it even beyond that?
No, entrepreneurs, business owners,
Gotcha.
founders.
Great. Awesome. Well, be sure to have your contact information in the show notes, and especially with your Instagram, because I know that's some really good, juicy stuff you've offered there. Well, last question for you here. This is obviously the Money Ripples podcast, right? We talk about creating a ripple effect in the lives of others. So, Nona, what do you feel is your ripple effect you're here to create on this planet?
Hmm. I can tell you confidently that what I my purpose is, my ripple effect is hopefully, whoever this resonates with, that it expands their consciousness into believing that there is more of a possibility and more of a potential for them just because somebody else may have done it.
Oh, I love it. That's great. Well, again, I appreciate your time today. I easily could have gone double this time, if not longer. I know there's so much here. So again, I'll just invite everybody, be sure to go to Instagram. I know I will be able to check out her 90-minute, breakdown of those four steps. So again, Nona, thank you so much for your time and being so generous today.
Amazing. Thank you for having me.
And everybody else, you know what? We talk about this stuff all the time, success and, collapsing time, as we talked about here, and how to become successful. But ultimately, it's about not just being a hearer of this, but being a doer of the word as well. So be sure and go and make it a wonderful and prosperous week. We'll see you later.